start with, and this is a question that we'll ask to Paul, firstly from the wireless logic viewpoint, and then to Udi from the Shield IoT perspective. I guess the first question is, how do you see the cellular IoT security landscape today? So, Paul, do you mind taking that first?
Yeah, I can. For years, security concerns have shown up as number one, number two blocker to successful IoT rollouts, whether it's cellular or any other kind of IoT project. You know, with the advent of AI-based spear phishing, the attack surface is not getting smaller. And frequently now, on a regular basis, you have national government security services putting out alerts about botnets of various provenance, whether it's China or private sector malicious actors that have infiltrated national infrastructure. Recently, I think it was in June, the FBI put out a note about the Volt Typhoon botnet. These are real things that are happening, and these malicious actors are targeting at every single squeaky door they can shake to see if they can get in, and cellular devices are one of those. The industry has been responding at a pretty good rate of speed, I think, with security augmentation at the SIM level, the device level, and the network level, and lots of already emerged or soon to emerge new regulatory requirements that sometimes carry fairly stiff liabilities. Our response at Wireless Logic is we've implemented a 360-degree defend, detect, react framework where from the SIM up to compliance reporting and everything in between, we try to give visibility and telemetry data, for lack of a better phrase, and instrumentation so that our customers have the visibility of these assets and more important, as importantly, the actionability when something goes wrong.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. And it's a key topic I'm sure that we'll revisit as well, the actionability element as well. So no, thank you for that. And I think, Udi, great to hear, I think, from your perspective as well, you know, as a specialist security player, you know, how you see it at the moment.
So I have to say I agree with Paul. Threats are escalating, and I think that there's it's starting to change. I would say currently cellular IoT security is still immature, yeah, but it's starting to change. It's mostly we're talking about secured connection, authentication, and encryption, which is great, but it doesn't answer the customer needs for visibility. And for example, if the device is already compromised, it's completely ineffective. And historically, traditionally, I would say that cellular IoT devices have been a bit overlooked. Maybe they were perceived as simple, dumb. I'm not exactly sure. But what we're seeing today is massive growth, both in numbers and in usage and applications. When we talk about numbers, it's like roughly 3.5 billion SIM-connected B2B devices today, expected to almost double until the end of the decade. And it's not just about the number, it's about the usage. We're seeing high-value assets, applications such as transportation, smart grids, medical devices, payments that use sensitive data that are critical to the service. And as more we see them, the more they're also being targeted. Just a few statistics following on what Paul said. Over 90% of devices are built with open source framework, which is nice, but it's riddled with vulnerabilities. Palo Alto Networks did a study on that and showed that 6 out of 10 devices they checked was easily compromised using vulnerabilities to generate high severity attacks. 53% of critical infrastructure organizations said that they had events where they had data loss or service disruption because of significant IoT security or severe IoT security attacks. So definitely, I would say there is a growing threat out there. And the challenge I think the industry needs to face, and this is really the ecosystem here, and so this is why I like the panel here and the fact that we're looking at a different approach is that it's not just about so many different the scale of the devices or different applications or all different shapes and sizes coming from different manufacturers, but the fact is that these devices are less protected. Why? Your regular devices are usually inside the enterprise perimeter. They're protected or inside the enterprise with all its defenses, or sometimes inside, for example, a manufacturing facility, as an example. But most of these cellular IoT devices are outside of their enterprise. They're exposed. You can touch them. You can physically tamper them. You can easily hack them. And so a different approach is needed. And I think the panel today, and I think the industry is starting to move in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Udi. Yeah, and I think we massively agree from what we see as well in terms of projections of devices, but then looking at the vulnerability of those devices and entry point as well for attacks. So, no, really good point. And I'm really looking forward to also getting Daniel's viewpoint as well. You know, we talk about this as, you know, providers in the industry. It's really refreshing and great that we can get Daniel's viewpoint as well. So question then, Daniel, for yourself. So from your experience, you know, as a security leader in the payment industry, in your view, what is the relevance of cellular IoT in industry and how do you see its risks and challenges?
Yeah, thanks for that question, John. So this, for us, this intersection of IoT and payments may be unique to this audience, but for us, that intersection continues to narrow and merge. So IoT is essentially becoming the same concept as a cellular-based payments. What we think about is a cellular device is now just a payment-enabled IoT device. These things are becoming one. So think about that merchant with an iPad or a tablet, cellular connected, taking payments. Think about that handheld POS device, cellular connected at the Taylor Swift concert. We think about that micro merchant with a cellular phone, just like you and me, cellular phone with a tap and go payment app or a payment dongle attached to it. That EV charging station that Udi mentioned, that cellular connected vending machine, that connected car or refrigerator ordering online. For us, these are all IoT payment devices. And with this explosion of devices comes additional risk and security vulnerabilities. So for us as consumers, this explosion of devices is great. It allows us to make payments and access payments and provide frictionless purchasing almost anywhere in the world. But along with this ubiquity, also comes this increase in risk and security vulnerability that we've been talking about. And for us as a payments provider, a payment network, a payment technology provider, this is the risk that we're looking at.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Daniel, and Udi and Paul, of course. So really good inputs there. And I think let's move on now and let's look at the second theme of the three that we're going to look at. So specifically here, we're looking at threat vectors. You know, and the threat vectors that only your service provider can detect. And I think that's important as well to look at, you know, so when we're looking at, you know, how safe are our devices, you know, obviously there's certain visibility the client has and there's certain visibility, like you say, that the provider will have as well. So again, a couple of questions that we want to ask here. And the first one, we'll reverse the order this time. So we'll go to Udi first and then to Paul. And I guess, gentlemen, maybe this is a common question that you come across, given I guess, you know, the ecosystem that we're in and the range of different stakeholders who are all touched into this area in different ways. But in your viewpoint, keen to understand, what is the unique position of the connectivity service provider in addressing, you know, the customer, so the business customers' security challenges? Udi, I'll let you answer first.
So it's a good question. I would say that unlike other connectivity technologies, there's cellular IoT has a built-in paradox in it. Yeah? On the one hand, the devices and the data belong to the business, to the customer. But on the other hand, the connectivity provider, the CSP, is the owner of the network infrastructure. And this paradox creates concerns and challenges for businesses. It's not just because the lack of expertise and knowledge they have in cellular network, but because they're inherently, it's very difficult for them, almost impossible for them to monitor the cellular network. And I'm just telling upfront, and it's very easy and very effective for their CSP partner to do it. And I'll explain. There's the problem we see is visibility, and I'll define it. And what I'm saying now, we've seen it across the board, different verticals, different customers, really everywhere. And think about these are the devices in the field, different devices connecting over cellular connectivity, going to the connectivity provider, to the mobile core, and from there to the enterprise or the IoT service provider. Great, simple, straightforward. The problem is, and that we see the attackers not working via this line, but the attackers are actually going directly from via the telco to the devices and back. And so all this bad communication, most of the bad communication doesn't even go to the enterprise. And so regardless how well the enterprise has asset management capabilities or threat prevention capabilities, they cannot protect what they don't see. Okay, we've mentioned payments. This is one of the most attacked sectors we've seen. There are roughly 500 million SIM-connected payment devices such as connected car, point of sale, EV charging, sharing some, and we see high degrees of attacks there. One of the customers, we're talking about a large payment service provider in Europe. We've monitored their network. Over 5% of their point of sales and payment devices were compromised. This is 1 out of 20. And in a period of 2 months, we've seen over 10,000 cases where significant data chunks, personal identifying information was sent from this point of sale to unauthorized destination, malicious sites, Telegram, you name it. And so the problem is, on the one hand, the enterprise, the business cannot protect what they don't see, and the bad traffic doesn't go through them. But this also translates as a huge opportunity for the connectivity service providers because they're already there. The data goes and flows through them. And so they're in a perfect position to monitor the network, to offer their customers visibility, cybersecurity, and ultimately also compliance. And the nice thing is the end customer doesn't need to do anything. Everything is already controlled and goes through the connectivity service provider.
Yeah, thanks, Udi. And that ties on very nicely, Paul, to get your viewpoints as a connectivity service provider.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, building on what Udi said, for me, it's about bringing things that are currently out of perimeter in a security sense, and those are cellular IoT devices. I can never bring them fully in perimeter to the enterprise, but what I can do is give them sight and touch on these things so it feels more like it's in perimeter. And that means that setting up automatic analysis and reaction instrumentation in our network that the customer has control over, that is integrated with the customer's SOC and their security practices, so that the IoT connected devices that are in perimeter for my network are much closer to being in perimeter for the enterprise customer. And there's an important thing here that Udi, I don't think quite touched on, is that bringing the visibility and actionability onto these devices helps the response to all security incidents. So when an enterprise is experiencing a security incident, one of their first ports of call is to establish the null hypothesis. What isn't it? And having security instrumentation of the sort Wireless Logic provides on your cellular estate allows you to rule out the source of the security incident being your IoT network, which gets you much closer to the root cause analysis in the first place. So yeah, it's for us, it's about opening up all of the stuff we know about what's happening on your IoT network, because we are your IoT network. That's what it's about.
Yeah, 100%. No, Paul, Udi, thanks for those responses. Okay, and now Daniel, let's bring yourself in here. A question from your perspective, and I guess the question we have, it's kind of a two-stacked question actually. So bear with me. So do it. So MasterCard is essentially monitoring financial transactions, right? So I guess the question is, how do you see the relevance of the IoT network security and monitoring approach to the payment industry? And are these essentially, are they different disciplines in your view?
So interesting question. Let me start by saying that MasterCard's promise to consumers, to businesses, to governments is to ensure the safety and security for all transactions that run across our network. So as part of this promise, every day, today, every day, we authenticate devices and users. We assess fraud risk, transaction fraud risk, identity fraud risk. We monitor large scale fraud attacks. We look at and detect breaches. We identify compromised cards and compromised merchants, right? And so while monitoring new IoT devices and IoT-based payments is not really a different value proposition for MasterCard, sort of detecting the security vulnerabilities and fraud risks associated with cellular IoT devices requires additional data, requires additional insights, and analyzing both payment network data and cellular network data provides us that unique view. It's a little bit of a different approach with tools and techniques and data analytics, but the core of what we're doing in terms of monitoring activity doesn't change. It's just a different form factor that requires a different set of tools and techniques to look at and secure and assess and monitor. So hopefully that answers the question, the two-part question.
Two-part question. No, Daniel, that's perfect. And again, I think it's really helpful to understand, like you say, how you're approaching that from your perspective as well versus the service provider. So no, thank you for that. Okay, let's move then into the final part of the panel discussion. And here we're talking about the practicalities of commercial deployment. So how can this be best realized, as we're implementing IT security, and getting your different viewpoints on this. So, Paul, let's start with yourself again. Okay, so Wireless Logic is well known, for providing cellular IT security services on top of the connectivity. So, from your viewpoint, what are those practicalities of commercial deployment? And then in terms of deliverables, a two-step question for you too. What would an enterprise, what would they discover about their devices, from week one of seeing that service?
We've designed this so the customers don't have to do anything. There is no agents on the devices, of course, and what we do is we selectively mirror off traffic IP headers. There's no GDPR exposure, no PII, nothing like that. And we analyze this traffic behavior, and using AI and machine learning, we can make probabilistic and sometimes quite specific predictions and observations about what's happening on devices. Over several dozen customers, we have yet to implement this solution and not find something. Sometimes the something is scarier than other times, but there's always something. So we have found the Mirai botnet. We have found devices that have clearly not been updated. We have found all kinds of suspicious IPs, all kinds of devices talking to things they definitely should not be talking to. Because in the first couple months of the implementation, we let it run and we let it learn the IoT deployment, the customer's IoT deployment. And an IoT deployment should be boring, should be really boring. All the devices do the same thing all the time and nothing else. And so we can understand a baseline really, really quickly. And then understanding if there's of 100 devices, 97 of them have 4 endpoints every day, all day. But 3 of them have 12 endpoints. That's a problem. And as I say, in every single customer deployment, we have found something that's been required of further investigation and understanding. And customers are uniformly surprised sometimes, but always appreciative of this new visibility that they hadn't had before.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. That's some great fundamental responses there, right? They shouldn't have to do anything. And then I love the strapline of it should be boring, because you're right. Devices should be,
Keep it boring. Keep it boring. Keep it safe.
Perfect. Daniel, let's get your perspective as well. now on this to wrap up. So coming from your viewpoint, how do you envision MasterCards and to be honest, other issuers as well, cooperation with connectivity service providers in ensuring the security of the cellular IoT payment ecosystem?
Sure. So this is an interesting question, right? MasterCard's not a cellular provider. We're not an MNO. We're not a connectivity provider. So obviously we rely upon our partners in order to help us deliver on our promise. The safety and security promise in the IoT space is really no different. We rely on partners here too. So mobile network operators, connectivity service providers, they're critical in delivering our value proposition in a couple ways. MNOs and connectivity service providers, one, have data that can help us with asset discovery and compile cellular network traffic for analysis. This is pretty critical for us to look at not only the cellular network traffic, but in combination with the payment network activity, transaction activity. So that's number one. Number two is MNOs and connectivity service providers really have that, what I'll call that last mile direct relationships with merchants and small businesses. MasterCard doesn't have that relationship all the way through this long tail of small businesses, merchants, micro merchants that are using cellular networks to deliver the POS and IoT device connectivity. We may not have that, but most of the time the MNO has a relationship directly, or the connectivity provider has a relationship with that merchant or small business that has an IoT device in place. So that's critical for us. We see that partner as a critical channel for delivering payment-oriented security solutions with us, on behalf of us, in conjunction with us. So that's sort of like how we see the landscape and cooperation with the connectivity service providers and MNOs.